This is my first time doing a Q&A on multiple platforms, so bear with me. Again, this is the first time that I'm doing this. Welcome to all participants involved. This is Q&A after dark, and as you guys come in, I'm just going to go over some of the rules. The people that follow me on Facebook, you guys already know how everything goes, but I have some new people on YouTube, so I want to break it down for you guys. Basically, what the Q&A is an opportunity to vet me as a life coach. It's an opportunity to also get your questions answered if you're not necessarily trying to do a one-on-one session and you just have one question, one answer, and you're good. It's also an opportunity to watch me answer questions on the fly. I know, especially within the Black community, we're not big fans of therapy, and counseling and that kind of thing. So I think it helps to observe the person you're considering to coach you so you can get a feel for how they do things. And I think that me in particular, I'm really, really chill and I'm straight to the point. So I don't think I make people feel like they're being psychoanalyzed per se, but I am intuitive. So I do pay attention to all the context clues, all the body language, what is said and what's not said. And I pay attention to the wording that people use when they talk as well, because it can be very revealing and it helps me discern the right approach. And I don't just jump to conclusions. I will ask for clarity to make sure that I understand. So in tonight's Q&A, here's how everything goes. This is an opportunity to ask questions pertaining to you, your self, just as an individual, your marriage, your relationship, your communication skills, your healing, your trauma, the confusion, your clarity, your spirituality, your goals and achievements, maybe even your failings. You can ask any questions surrounding that. Now, if you know anything about me personally, this is not the time to ask those sorts of questions. This is 100% to focus on you. So you can ask whatever you'd like, if it's pertaining to motherhood, if it's pertaining to being a wife, if it's pertaining to just everyday family type things. I'm all for it. If it's about poly, the lifestyle in general, I'm all for it. As long as the questions are structured around you, someone you know, that kind of thing, I'll do my best to answer the question. Let me see. You guys are more than welcome to put your questions in the comments at this time. You are also more than welcome to send me your question via DM on Facebook and or Instagram if you'd like. And I can read off the question from my phone. That's an easy way to do it as well. And then from there, hopefully we can just keep the ball rolling. Anika says, how do I access your services? Well, that's really easy. You can just DM me on any platform that you have me accessible. I will go over pricing as well as availability. And you can let me know what you're trying to do. Is it an individual session? Is it you and your significant other, you and your child? And we will work out the details and get you scheduled. It's pretty straightforward and relatively easy. And again, all you have to do is send me a DM on whatever platform is easiest for you. Typically, people message me on Facebook and Instagram. But if you have if I have a page set up, you are more than welcome to message me there. I appreciate you asking the question, just in case there's anybody in the comments that wanted to know but didn't necessarily want to type up the question. Again, you guys are more than welcome to put your questions into the chat. And I'm normally up for an hour, but since we're doing this so late, I'll probably be up for 30 minutes. Unless we get the ball really rolling, then I'll go ahead and stretch it out. And usually, for whatever reason, it usually takes us a little bit to get the ball rolling. But you're more than welcome again to ask any question that you like, as long as it's pertaining to yourself and pertaining to anything around you, your marriage, your communication, your kids, your healing, your trauma. Just asking for a hypothetical scenario, however you see it. Okay, and Anika, one more time. So, I'm 28 years old and I've been in a relationship with a man 17 years older than I am. We're now going on 5 years together. I've known him for 8.5 years. Amazing man, very intelligent, but we are seeming to have a communication deficit. I believe it's due to the age difference. He feels it's due to lack of effort. Okay. So now, the fact that he's 17 years your senior, I would agree, definitely plays a part. Now, oftentimes, nobody wants to hear that. Not the person that's older and not the person that's younger. But the truth is that as little as 5 years could create a difference between two people in perspective. So if you stretch that out to 10 years, then 15 and more than that, you're creating a larger gap, because times are changing. Every year, new things are going on, what's relevant, what's not. All of these things are shaping our character and our identity. So it's completely understandable to believe that the gap of 17 years affects you guys as far as communication. Now, you are more than welcome to answer or not, but you said you guys are experiencing a deficit. You guys have been together for 5 years, known him 8.5. So are you guys declining? Is the communication becoming less effective over the course of so long? Or has this been consistent throughout the entire time? Thank you so much, Terry. Good evening. And thank you so much for the information. I appreciate that. Let me go ahead and put that up just in case I might need it. While I'm waiting on your response, Anika, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question. Miss Shonda, I only have one sibling and I suspect she's jealous. I do have a baby and would like her to be in her life, but it's like she made an excuse to be upset with me. I have always seemed to reach out to her more and buy more gifts. How do I now reach out or try to meet up for my baby? Or should I not initiate, as I've already expressed my interest in her being in my life? She's divorced and deals with depression also. Sorry for typos. No worries, Shonda. At the end of the day, we're all adults. And my perspective on healthy relationships is it's a two-way street. Now, does that mean that the person has to match your effort item for item? No. The truth is, we all offer ourselves and give ourselves at different capacities. So, one thing is you have to be realistic around who you are versus who she is. Take, for example, if you have two girls who are best friends, one person's a homebody, the other person likes to get out and be adventurous, right? If the person who likes to get out and be adventurous feels like the person who's a homebody is not a real friend because they don't always go out when they're invited to go out, they're not being realistic. They're not giving their friend the opportunity to live out their identity as they are. essentially they're trying to change them. You see what I'm saying? So Shonda, you have to look at it from the same perspective. This may be your sister. You might want her to have a relationship with your child, but your sister's going to be who she is. You might buy gifts and she doesn't think much of gifts. It might be a situation to where that's not how she shows other people love. You're a gift giver. So you have to understand that when you love someone, you like to buy them things. Everyone is not like that. So you can't measure you buying gifts with her buying gifts. If you're the type of person who's family oriented, so you chase your family down, you call them on the phone, you check on them, and then you get mad at them for not showing up with the same energy. People sometimes grow up and that's not how they were raised to be, always engaging and always checking in. Some people have a real loner type uh existence. So if you want to have your sister in your life, I would say number one, you make sure that you know who you are in comparison to who she is. And you give both of you guys space to exist, because you cannot project onto her that her job is to show up in the way you show up. She's not you. And then you tell her you want her to be in your life, in your child's life, and you let her respond. If she shows you and or tells you that that's not something that she's trying to do, or she's going to show up every once in a while, then when she shows up, you spend time with your sister. You allow your child to spend time with your sister, but you don't get pressed about it. Okay? Because she's like a tumbleweed. Maybe she has, there are those type of people that just kind of blow in like the wind and blow right back out. They kind of like to do their own thing. So they don't like being held to these outlines of relationships and responsibilities. So if that's who she is, you have to honor that and just cherish the moments that you have access to her, and don't feel emotional and don't take it personal when you don't have access to her. Allow her to be who she is and enjoy her in the moments that you have to share. Does that make sense? All right, I'm jumping back over to Anika. The beginning was great, but okay, the beginning was great, but did you say I lived together? We lived together for 3 years, and I believe that was the start of the downfall. Okay, you fixed it at the bottom. Okay. The beginning was great, but we lived together for 3 years, and I believe that was the start of the downfall. Okay. And that's completely possible. Honestly, I would say that living together is a big deciding factor for most relationships, because when you're apart and then you go spend time with each other, it's easier to take your mask off and put it back on when you don't live together. It's really easy for you to say, this is my representative when we're out and about and hanging out, spending time at your house or at my house or whatever. But then I get to go take my mask off when I'm at home by myself. When you guys live together, there's nowhere either of you can go to take your mask off, which means that eventually your partner is going to see who that is. And when you start to see the person that they've been covering up most of the relationship, that's when reality sets in. Like, okay, this person, when I knew them, and we were just hanging out, they were so clean, they were so respectful and so responsible. But now that we live together, I realize that this person is kind of lazy. This person procrastinates. You know what I mean? And you learn that over time. So 17-year age gap, that has nothing to do with that. That happens to everybody. I don't think there's anybody in the world that could say when we were dating, it's exactly the same as when we moved in together. Like, no, when you were dating, there was a part of that person that you did not know. When you move in with them, that's when you really understand what it is. And some people actually live by that rule and say you shouldn't get married or you shouldn't get into a commitment until you move in together, because it changes so much for a lot of us. So that's completely understandable. And but even in that regard, is you have to keep in mind that that happens with people in the same age range. You guys are 17 years apart. Can you imagine how he likes to run his house, and you're, you know, 17 years younger than him, trying to bring in a new way how to do, because you guys are almost 20 years apart. That means you're introducing stuff to him that he probably doesn't even factor to his everyday reality, which means he's likely to be resistant and feel like you're pushing him outside his comfort zone. Whereas you at your age, you guys are used to tackling new things because you guys are in the age of technology and all the rest of that. Him, um, most of his youth was not in that same window. So a lot of things that you potentially could introduce would be going against the grain for him. So that's natural to feel some type of resistance. And for him to say it's a lack of effort, um, you might have to get clarity on that. It may be a lack of effort, but on whose part? Are both of you guys not trying? Is he telling you that he has a lack of effort because he's set in his ways, or he thinks that you have a lack of effort, which is possible, being that he's 17 years your senior? Typically, an age gap like that, he would find you immature and somebody that needs to change. So the effort that he observes might very well be on your part because of your youth. He feels like you should be doing it in a specific way. So when you're dating somebody and the gap is that big, you guys really have to sit down and gain an understanding as to what your commonalities are and what differences you guys bring to the table, and how adjustments need to be made to accommodate those things. Because if you're expecting him to be youthful like you, or he's expecting you to settle down like him, y'all pushing each other into a domain that doesn't typically come natural to you in most cases. And that's me just assuming that he's more of a homebody, just getting an idea for the ages. But typically that's how it unfolds, especially with the 17-year gap, with him being that much older than you. Around his age, you know, there's lots of stuff you're not really trying to get into. And at your age, you're trying to get into everything still. And he's trying to slow you down and you're trying to speed him up. You see what I'm saying? Typically. Now that you guys might not fit the outline of that specifically, but I'm sure you can apply it in the areas that make sense to you and your relationship and still carry that perspective over. Anika says, I'm also struggling with dwelling in my femininity, and I let a father figure, um, you lack a father figure, so his masculinity is too overwhelming for me. I would imagine so. And I think that a big part of that is the age gap as well. Not only you're saying he's a masculine, and masculinity is challenging by itself, but he's got 20 years on you, honey. He got 20 years of experience on you. So there's areas of correction that he's going to have for you that you're not even ready for at all, and probably don't want anything to do with. And honestly, it's a big deal. And I'm going to say this to all of the ladies: make sure you're serious about dating an older man. Like, I get it, the maturity is attractive, but understand that means he's going to be growing you up quite a bit. Because typically, when you're younger, you're in your 20s, you're still about adventure and go and exploring and this and that and the other. When you're talking to somebody that's 5, 10, 15, 20 years your senior, they're trying to take care of business. They're planning for retirement. They don't have time to be fooling around. They don't have time to play games. They don't do things that are typically unnecessary, unless you're dealing with somebody who's older in age but not older in maturity. I'm saying assume this older man is mature. There's a lot of stuff he's not going to be fooling with when it comes to you being the younger party. And even though we say ladies tend to mature faster, so they tell us to look to older men, that doesn't mean 20 years. That means like 3. That means like max 5. And that's depending on your compatibility. When you start pushing further than that, and trust me, 5 years, because Kevin's older than me by 5 years. And so even 5 years there, you can see a little bit of a difference there as it relates to, spontaneity and just being really flexible with life and that kind of stuff. It's not a lot, but it's enough to notice and realize that, you know, he's essentially growing you up, and you're trying to influence him to kind of let his hair down a little bit. Have a little fun, just be a little wild, be a little crazy, do something that's not planned, be random, be spontaneous. So if that's true at 5 years, you can only imagine what that looks like at 17 years. And this is 5 years, and I was 28 when we met. Now I'm 28. I don't even know why I said 28, y'all. I'm 38, getting ready to be 38 this month, and he's 42. So we're close in age, but it's still, 5-year gap, as opposed to 28. You see what I'm saying? And then 17 years. You see what I'm saying? So you have to account for all of that, because whether you know it or not, that is a big age gap. He's approaching 50. He's old enough to be a grandfather almost. You know what I mean? Like Kev has a grandbaby. He's 42. You see what I'm saying? So you have to understand that experience and maturity and wisdom is what you're dealing with. And it's not a negative thing, but if you're the younger party, you can't just be fooling with this man. You're dealing with a lot more than just masculinity. You're dealing with structure and wisdom and life lessons. And he's 17 years ahead of you, sis. So some of the conversations that you will have with him will very much sound like the context of conversation you would have with your father. Like, I've been where you're trying to get to. You think you know everything, and it's gonna make you feel like you're not grown. Like you think you know everything, and that's the energy you're going to want to come back with. But you have to keep in mind, you're dealing with somebody that he has 20 years on you. He doesn't know everything, but he has 20 years of life experience over you. So it may seem that way through your perspective, and it might feel overwhelming, but that's what you're trying to tackle. So that means that you have to read, you have to study, you have to be intellectually inquisitive, you have to be a sponge with him so he can pour into you, because you being resistant to that is going to create a problem, because at his age, he knows where he wants to go already. You see what I'm saying? So, and I honestly, if I had a daughter, if I had sisters or anything like that, I will always tell them, like, don't date beyond 3 years of your age range. I think that that's a mature and realistic expectation. 3 years either way, up or down. Me personally, I stuck to 3 years up, but 3 years either way. And when you get into 5 years, I think that's the line. When you push past that, yeah, you're going to feel it's going to impact how your relationship flows. And that's why you don't see it often, and you don't see it last often. And of course, not speaking onto your relationship, because anything's possible of lasting as long as two people are on the same page. But I'm saying, as far as looking out into society and seeing it happening all over, you don't see age gaps like that very often because they typically are short lived due to maturity most of the time. So if you're the younger party, you have to keep in mind that you may not like it, it may not be comfortable, but you will likely be the person that requires more maturity simply because of the experience comparison alone. Yes, and I'm not a big busybody. He asked me if I could do you might have to type that again, Anika. I'm not a big busybody. He asked me if I could what I want to hear. Oh, if you could talk to your 40-year-old self, would you want to hear your view of life? That's a good question, and that's a great way of putting it into perspective for you to really give yourself an idea of what you're dealing with. Absolutely. I think that's a great question to ask to put it into perspective. Like today, here and now, would you want to be taught a thing or two by your 40-year-old self? Because that's basically where you are, and that's what the experience would be like. So absolutely. I would say to maintain the relationship and keep it healthy and keep it solid, you want to be in a position of absorbing like a sponge and taking everything he has to teach you and not being combative because he has a lot of experience to teach, and if you're there for it, he could step your game up in the best of ways. You just have to look at it as you being taught and being a sponge to you. You have to be a student of him. Essentially, you can't really go into an age gap like that thinking that you know more. You have to kind of practice humility and understand that he has a lot to teach, whether it's good experiences or bad. He has a lot of wisdom, and you should be there for it. And then two, whether women know it or not, uh, and even myself, had to practice this is the willingness to absorb, because everybody in general wants to convey that they're smart. But when you're in a relationship with a man, um, the objective is to demonstrate that you're willing to absorb. You're willing to be a student of him. And for most women, they feel like that's something that makes them feel small and inferior. So they tend to boast and rally against that, when all it demonstrates to the person you're trying to be with is that you're not willing to learn, which also says you don't trust them, which also says that you're not happy with choosing them. And the symbolism behind quote unquote not listening and ready to receive is so much different amongst men than it is women. Ladies, we love to converse. To us, it's not a big deal if we disagree. It's not a big deal if we're not on the same perspective. We just understand each other better. That's just how you look at the world. And we don't typically walk away from differences of opinion offended. We love to converse. We love to gain knowledge from each other and gain experiences from each other. Like women love to add to their Rolodex of information from each other. So it doesn't matter whether it's a good thing, a bad thing, gossip. We love to take a little bit of information from everywhere. Whereas men are a little bit different in that, right? It has to support their agenda, line up with their mindset, reflect on their identity. Like there's so many different things. So when women are just conversing and they're just expressing an opinion, women amongst women perceive it as harmless, even if they're not agreeing with you. Whereas a man will receive not agreeing with you as rebellion. You know what I mean? As being masculine, as wanting to wear the pants. When for us as women, this is how we get to know each other, is chatting each other up. Whether it's a good conversation or a bad conversation, it might even get high in emotions and very emotional. That doesn't phase us, because to us, the conversation is just data collection. But for men, it actually means something. Like, you asking one too many questions, it means you don't trust. It means you second guess. You're combative. Like, it's a different experience for men than it is for women. Women can chat each other up all day and sometimes say things that the other person doesn't like, and we'll bicker about it, and it's over 2 seconds later majority of the time. But for men, they take things so literally more often than not. And how we listen to advice, how we absorb information, how we lead our life after they've given their opinion about something greatly impacts how they view us as women, and how they discern what we think of them. So we always have to keep that in mind. So the impression that they get in the moment is the correct one, because most of the time what they think we're doing and what we're doing is two totally different things. And sometimes that line of communication can be hard to translate, because men just don't look at the world the way we do. Men will always and forever be facts and truth, white and black. Women will always be the exception to the rule, the gray area, and what if. You see what I'm saying? And we don't like each other's language. So trying to bring those two natures together and put them in the same spot and have them make sense to each other is very difficult already. When you put an age gap in there, you've got your work cut out for you. It can be done, but it will be a challenge. Um, okay, Anika, yes, DM me for sure. I thought those questions were really, really dope. And you don't really think about these things. Like, it's I appreciate you guys being so different. Of course, you guys didn't plan to have different questions, but I appreciate it. Conscience, soul, Ashe. It's been a little bit since I watched you, but I'm here. I would like to give you your flowers and say I appreciate you for reminding us men how strong we are. Oh, thank you. Of course. My pleasure. Um Goodness, you guys. I think when it comes to relationships, and you guys are more than welcome to add your questions into the chat. Tonight is Q&A after dark, where you can put your questions into the chat and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. I just went over 2 questions thus far. Well, 3, I think. And I am ready for more. I've answered the ones that were presented to me already. My biggest thing is balance. And it's very difficult to achieve because we're fighting for power, because we prioritize ego and pride, because of the need to be right. So many unimportant things take precedence over the things that actually last a lifetime. They impact our spirit and impact our children. And no one's the wiser. We actually think we're doing right by ourselves and doing good, but we're actually enabling ourselves to be the most vibrant, the most knowledgeable, the most graceful individuals that we can possibly be. We put ourselves in situations that, when we experience them, we learn that they're difficult. We learn that they're challenging. We learn that they're confusing. We learn that we don't have control. We learn that things just don't go your way. And typically when you get into a situation like that, you turn away from it and run because it's not something you can predict. And society has created an experience to where we prefer things to be predictable. And when we run into something that doesn't fit our expectations and the predictions that we make, um, we rally against it. We make it something weird or problematic. And the real issue is that you won't open your mind enough to include something outside of your own perspective. So the real issue is your narrow mindedness. The issue is not that people are different. The issue is not that people don't share the same perspective or they agree to disagree. The issue is always somebody's in the conversation trying to dominate it because they think they're right, because they think someone else is wrong, because they can't absorb the perspective that's contrary to their own. So we literally build these tunnels and these narrow-minded experiences. And then when somebody presents something outside of our narrow-minded vision, we make them the problem when the problem is someone is giving you information to broaden your horizons and you refuse. You're telling them that because you don't think so, it's not true. Because you don't like it, it's not true. Because it makes you feel a way, it's not true. None of those things make a fact less so. And we know that to be true. And we will argue against it anyway because of cognitive dissonance, because of discomfort. Because if we acknowledge the thing, then we have to process the thing, then the thing is real. And essentially, that's why we say ignorance is bliss, because most of us would rather maintain the lie than accept the truth, because the truth brings change. The truth brings acceptance. The truth means looking into a mirror and reflecting on what is, not what will be or what the potential is. And if when you look in the mirror, you see flaws. And that's the reality, is that no matter how much you've accomplished, no matter how much money you have, no matter what you think you have done to create the best life for yourself, you, as well as anybody else, can walk over to that mirror and see a problem. So, and because we can't absorb that two things can exist at the same time, we can't reconcile the fact that when you see a flaw in the mirror, it still means you accomplished all those things. It still means you have the money that you do. It still means that you've reached the plateaus that you've reached. But it also means that you still have this flaw. And when you look at the flaw, because we can't accept two things can exist at the same time, we tell ourselves, well, if I have a flaw, then I don't matter. I'm not enough. I'm not a good person. If this is true, then it erases everything that I've accomplished. It erased everything that I am. Like, that's the feeling that you get when you've been in a relationship for a long period of time and that person leaves you or cheats on you with someone else. And you know you've accomplished, you know you've worked hard, you've been a good wife, you've been a good mother, but this person has done this thing. So now if I acknowledge that they've actually done this thing, in my mind, them doing this thing only happened because I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not that. And we don't know how to differentiate the two and say, no, you betrayed me because you're disloyal. That doesn't mean my value decreases. And see, society, the educational system, is supposed to educate us. But one of the main things that they were unable to provide was self-esteem, was identity, was confidence. How is that possible? You can do math, you can do language, you can do science, you can paint, you can run, but you don't think highly of yourself. You doubt yourself. You don't know how to call a thing a thing. We're adults walking around thinking that we can earn our way into confidence, earn our way into being a good person as far as earning money. Monetary value will determine my goodness. That's not a thing. Having money brings about respect. No, it doesn't. People don't respect you. They behave well because they want access to your money. That's not respect. Women believe beauty gains respect. That's not true. You being beautiful just means men want to be in your presence. Men want to take you for a test drive. It doesn't bring you respect. It calls for people to want access to you. But we keep on perpetuating these narratives and explaining these perspectives to society. So now our children work hard for these things. They want to be basketball players. They want to be rappers. They want the cars, the clothes, the jewelry. And the sad thing is, when they get to where they're going, they'll realize that all you really fought for was people to continue to be disloyal, betray you, but now it's just for access to your money. You didn't gain respect. You didn't become this to get respect. The sad thing is that we don't know you can get respect broke because it's character, it's consistency, it's loyalty, it's being a person of your word. Women think they can gain respect by being beautiful. Men think they can gain respect by money. Neither is true. It has always been a matter of character and consistency and how you demonstrate yourself. And so if something as simple as that is misconstrued in society, how can anything else that exists around it or depends on it be accurate? And it makes you wonder. It really does. It makes you wonder. We all have an assignment to unlearn and relearn the things that are going on around us, because the wisdom that we have is not wisdom, or the knowledge that we have is not wisdom by any means. What we're applying is what has been demonstrated in front of us, because it's what worked for the people who came before us. It's what worked for our parents and for our grandparents. So they teach it to us. I use the same Hunt's ketchup as my mother did, as her mother did, as her mother did. It took for me to want to be healthier and to turn that bottle around and look at the ingredients for me to make a different choice. Not because I was taught, but because I desired something different. If I based my existence off what I was taught, I would continue to eat that same brand and then feed it to my son, which would feed it to his child. But our free thinking skills have to be willing to broaden. If we're all narrow minded about the things that we've been taught, we will do nothing but replicate what we've been taught to our children, and they will replicate what we've taught them to their children. Hence the term generational curses. We are literally participating in the conditioning of our own generations, and none the wiser. And every generation complains about how we exist, but none of them have the free thinking skills to step outside of the outline, to color outside of the lines, use the shade that goes against what you've been required to use. This man foresaw a future for me I couldn't see for myself, and he's making it all possible. That's a wonderful thing. That's a wonderful thing. Wisdom is very hard to come by. Very hard to come by. And even if you're not in romantic relationship, if you have access to someone who is wise, someone who can think outside of their experience, someone who can put two and two together without doing the necessary research simply because their mind works, keep access to that person, because most of society is based on what someone else would do. What do you think? What should I do? That is not, people that ask those type of questions are not in their brain. They're being led by an external source. And while they need to exist because life works the way it works and repetitively, because of those types of people thinking that way, in addition to that, it's the people who color outside of the lines that add a new experience to life. We wouldn't have lights. We wouldn't have hair products and glasses and LASIK surgery and teeth whitener and all of these things if everyone was the what do you think I should do type. We need unicorns so the rest of the world can have experiences that they never would have contemplated on their own. I loathe the word normal for that reason, because we shrink people and shame people and guilt people for displaying characteristics that are quote unquote not normal, not realizing that without not normal people, life would be boring. There are so many aspects of life that we would not have access to because normal is consistent. Normal is predictable. We need something that's spontaneous, something that's abnormal, something that breaks the pattern. Because without a pattern being broken, we wouldn't have technology. Without pattern being broken, we wouldn't have lights. Without a pattern being broken, there wouldn't be the evolution at the rate that it is. Normal didn't create society. Unicorns did. Abnormal people did. Someone had to obsess about bugs for us to learn about them. Someone had to obsess about chemicals for us to learn what to do with them. That wasn't a normal being. When everybody else was playing sports, they were playing with bugs and chemicals. There was nothing normal about them. And yet they have contributed to making our lives easier every day. Oh my goodness. Don't make me mess this up. Anjanae, I think that's how you say it. Ooh, it's beautiful. I love the spelling. Could you give me a little insight, advice? Me and my mom's relationship has been toxic, have not been in contact for 2 years. Now, due to not getting along, she tries to dominate my life by not agreeing with the choices and decisions I choose to make. She cut off contact with me. She talks bad about me publicly on social media. We've been through on and off contact for several years since she kicked me out at 18. Part of me wants to reach out to her, but see, she's blocked me recently. And then you're very welcome. That's a beautiful name, hun. It really is. I love it. Okay, so what is your question, Miss Anjanae? I'm so sorry that you have that relationship with your mom. I lost my mom almost 5 years ago. And I am a firm believer that a girl's relationship with her mom is her most important relationship for so many reasons. And I'm a spiritual person. I am not a religious person. So I mean no offense, but I will speak based on my standard and my practice. So if you are curious about my perspective, just ask. I don't mind explaining it. I don't want you to get confused, but uh, a mother is essentially a daughter's God. And when I say that, I mean that. I don't come from the perspective, again, of religion. I come from the perspective where the creators of who we have come from is evident. Father and mother are God. And while I get that religion comes from a space and a different perspective, and I respect it. I just share a different perspective. So, not having access to that connection can be devastating. What's going on, Shara? And Miss Anjanae, I did read your your message. I just need to know specifically what question did you want me to answer in relationship with your experiences with your mother. Yes, please share. I'm spiritual as well. And I feel attached to my mother, even though she has treated me. I find myself missing her, but I just want to rebuild a better bond with her and have boundaries. Okay, so Miss Anjanae, there's going to be some truths of this that you don't want to hear, but I know if you are half as spiritual as I am, you've already had these discussions with yourself and you're just looking to hear them from a source outside of yourself so you can finalize your opinion. The first thing that I want to say from one spiritual queen to another is you likely have your answers already. So use me as a tool of confirmation as opposed to someone who is lending you direction. Um, there's so much to go into, and I would invite you to consider a one-on-one with me because I already know just by what I read, there's layers to unpack. So I'm very thorough. So I have to say that first because I'm only going to be able to give you a piece of this. But the truth about unhealthy relationships between children and their parents is the first step is acceptance that you don't have control. And the reason for that is that a healthy relationship between more than one person is reliant on both parties. You can only control your participation in this healthy relationship. If your mother chooses to respond to your healthy initiation with toxicity and lack of a healthy contribution, there is nothing you can do about that. Um, the best thing you can do is practice acceptance. I talked to a young lady earlier today about accepting where other people are. You may want her to show up in a specific way, and that's the part that's going to keep you bound. Acceptance is your way out. You have to remind yourself that if you're a giver, be a giver. Show up as a giver because that is where your identity rests. However, your mother may be a taker. And regardless of how that makes you feel, that is where her identity may rest. And does that mean that she can't show up as a different person with other people? No. She may just have that identity with you. That's completely possible. It doesn't mean that you don't have to accept it any less. It means that the biggest thing when it comes to whether it's a romantic partner or a family member is when you're not getting what you need or want out of the other person, you want to shave off the parts of yourself that want anything from them at all. And that is causing yourself inner turmoil and trauma. That's why acceptance and self awareness and alignment are so important because the alignment says, I'm a giver. I'm okay with being a giver. When you can't accept that type of self awareness, and you give to people and then they take and don't return the favor, you are allowing for your own gift to cause you trauma because you can't accept that people don't have to reciprocate your efforts. You cannot bind other people to showing up in your identity. Your identity is your own. That means it is separate from your children, from your husband, from your mother, from your father, from everyone. You're very welcome, Anika. You have a great night. I should only be on for another 5 minutes. I'm getting ready to jump off as well. There's nothing you can do about that. And as the child, we feel that the parent should be responsible for bringing the relationship back together, when in reality, it's still a relationship. All parties involved hold some portion of responsibility. And so where your peace is saying, I want to spend time with my mother. I love my mother. And I want to show up as a giver. I want to show up as someone who loves her. I want to show up as somebody kind. Even though that's how I want to show up, me being kind, me being a giver, me wanting to love on her may not change how she shows up for me, because she may be a taker. If she is a taker, you have to say, I'm a giver and I understand my mother is a taker. So where I give her access to take, she will. I give myself permission to love her despite the fact that I know she will take every time I give her an opportunity to. So I have to release myself from the burden of feeling like a bad person or feeling like I'm a doormat every time I give, knowing she's going to take and not deposit back. You have to accept and say, I give to my mother because I love her, not because I require reciprocity. I show up for my mother because I love her, not because I require reciprocity. As long as you are requiring reciprocity for how you show up for her, when she doesn't, you will feel like she failed you. You will feel like she let you down, and then you will punish yourself for wanting to continue to give. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. The reason why we go through these emotional phenomena is because you were put here in the divine, and how you were created was not an error or a mistake. You being a giver is because you are here to provide in places where others are suffering a deficit. You cannot shave off aspects of yourself and change the fact that you are a giver because people will take. You were put here to be a giver for those that don't have. You have to understand that is your purpose. You're not a giver for no reason. And yes, that might have come by way of trauma. But the truth is, if you have unpacked all that baggage and you have healed all that baggage and you still love depositing into other people, that is your nature. How you developed the want to be that might have come via trauma, but once you work all of that out and you still long to be that, you feel incomplete without that. That is the divine energy in your spirit. You were put here to be a giver. You were put here to be a healer. You were put here to be a nurturer. You were put here to be a teacher, whatever that stuff, whatever that gift is. And when we get fractured, when we get burned, when we get scarred, we want to render ourselves, we want to strip that attribute away from ourselves, not realizing we're depriving ourselves of access of our own identity. And we're also depriving the people who are meant to walk through your life, or you're meant to walk through their life. And along the way, you are meant to deposit within them via your gift. But you're not accessing it anymore, which means they come through your life and pass through and they go without a vital piece that they needed. And it only could have come through you, through passing. So that's a ripple effect that you're creating. So If your mother's healing was supposed to come via your ability to give to her, and you allow her absence in return to put you in a position to say, I'm no longer going to be a giver, her healing will never come. So you have to own your identity and say, I'm a giver because that's just who I am. But I know when I get tired of giving, I'm also allowed to create boundaries around what and how much I give. You're still allowed to say it's enough. That doesn't mean turn off your gift. It means say that's enough. That's the last time I will give you something. That's the last time I will do. That's the last time I will deposit. This is your last seed. Do with it what you will. I love you. And Janae says, yes, sometimes I feel like a fool when she speaks bad about me because I may not agree with her on things. I do love her, just hate the things she does when it harms me emotionally because, plus I've struggled to hold my boundaries with her out of fear of cutting her off and losing the relationship with her. And I understand all of that. And all of that is going to come by way of accepting who you are and accepting who she is. You're still trying to maintain her. She's no one for you to maintain. You show up as who you are and respect the space she demands for who she is. You have to say, my name is Anjanae. I show up as a giver. My mother's name is, she shows up as a taker. When I leave space for her to take, she will. I cannot be mad at her for that because I understand she's a taker. You can't feel like a fool for being who you were designed to be. You see what I'm saying? The reason why you label yourself a fool is because you tell yourself you shouldn't want to give to a person that is a taker. When that's not the essence of your identity, beloved, you being a giver is not based in their ability to receive and reciprocate. You are a giver by nature, period. And that's the part that we refuse to accept, and it makes us angry because you're like, I don't want to do for you. Yes, you do. You want to do for her. You want to love her. You want to be near her. You want to hold her. You want to make sure she's in good health. You want to care for her because that's who you are. In order to rid yourself of the pain, you have to accept that truth and also accept her identity. That even though you want to love her and everything is purely, pure intended, she's still going to show up as who she is. And that may be a taker. That may be brokenness. That may be selfishness. You have to call it what it is and say that may not be her for the rest of her life, but that's her for now. And as long as I'm expecting her to show up as other than what she's showing me, my heart will maintain being broken. And if I can't create space for myself and create space for her, I will continue to deposit, hoping for a change. I will continue to expect reciprocity. And then when she does what she always does, I will be broken. Why do that when you can say, I give because I want to? I know my mother will take. I know my mother will, behave broken, whatever her issue is. So when she responds that way, it's within your expectation. And you don't look at yourself and say, why did you give to somebody that was never going to give back to you? What kind of person gives to somebody and they wouldn't do the same for you? That's how we condemn ourselves, and that's how we shame and guilt ourselves for acting like what we perceive to be a fool. You're not a fool for living in your purpose. You are a fool when you give to someone and expect them to not show up as who they are. What do they call it? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. The problem is not you showing up to love her, love. The problem is you thinking that's going to change her being a taker. You think that's going to mend her brokenness, that she's going to see you different. And she's going to maneuver differently because of it. It's going to inspire her to reciprocate. It hasn't done that thus far. The expectations are what's destroying you. The lack of acceptance is what's destroying you. Hey. And so you have to understand that that's not how that works. You have to accept how it works so that everything is within your expectation. And once everything is within your expectation, then you can set those firm boundaries. You'll never be able to do that if you're expecting an outcome that never shows. That's not how this works. There's another one underneath the underneath the sink. It should be larger than that one. On the right side. You're welcome. And so purpose, alignment, self-awareness, all of those things are extremely, extremely, extremely important. And if you won't do that, you're choosing to continue to be hurt. Expectations are shackles. And if you are expecting outside of what you're repeatedly being shown, the flaw has nothing to do with how you're showing up. The flaw is in your lack of acceptance for what you've been seeing, what you've been experiencing. And that will always be a problem. We have a tendency to do that. I'm depositing, but what do I get back? Nothing. And you get upset about it. And it's like, but you are the one that keeps repeating the behavior. There's nothing wrong with depositing love if that's where you come from, if that's who you are. The problem is you thinking that you giving is going to change something. Carlene says, but does accepting who she is mean that she never addresses it with her? No, you can address it. But again, that's within expectation. Addressing it doesn't mean you're going to get what you're looking for. Most of the time, addressing it makes a person defensive. It doesn't make them change. It just it encourages them to view you as someone attacking them, or as, view you as an enemy. I'm sure she's had the conversation already. And that's part of the reason why I haven't brought it up, because they've already had a conversation about how she doesn't like the nasty things her mom does. And even if it wasn't a completely thorough conversation, her body language would have told her mother that she doesn't like it. So the fact that none of those things are being recognized says a lot about not only character, but experience. And you have to keep in mind, Carlene, as well, that Miss Anjanae, she wants to be around her mother, though she's had these bad experiences. So addressing it with her is likely not to change the circumstance. She will just be addressing it with her. Her mother's going to say mean things, and Anjanae is going to have the same choice. Do I continue to deposit in this person that's not kind to me? Addressing something with someone does not mean they're going to take accountability. It does not mean they're going to give you closure. It does not mean that they have to give you some type of peace and or clarity. And that's another misconception of society, is that we think our healing lies with other people. Your healing, your evolution, your wisdom, your ability to be sound of mind and body will always rest with you. The experiences that happen in an external aspect are for you to learn about the inside of yourself. They're not there to heal you, fix you, provide you with anything but the knowledge to work with for your repair. We think that when we experience these negative phenomena, let me go talk to them. Let me go tell them, this is what you're not going to do. And then the other person doesn't have a choice in the matter. They don't have to listen to you. They don't have to respect you. They don't have to apologize. They don't have to be accountable. They don't have to tell the truth. Like, we're trying to bind and, bound people, to an outline that we think is acceptable. Again, expectations. I think I can tell you how you're going to show up in my life. You don't get to talk to me any old kind of way. I mean, they can, though. The only thing that's going to regulate that is how you respond to it. Because they can talk to you any way that they want. You can have a whole fight with them and they still could disrespect you soon as you're done. You see what I'm saying? You're not controlling anything. You're trying to, but you don't have control. And life in itself is, the purpose of life is not to create all of these guidelines for other people so you don't have to deal with yourself. The purpose of life is for these external experiences to teach you where you need to grow and improve and mature, and for you to do so that as things unfold, you are able to be more flexible as you grow. Life is about obtaining more empathy, more mental fortitude, more emotional intelligence, more wisdom. We are supposed to be sponges of life, students of life. But somebody somewhere told us that your job is to control it all. Can't nobody hurt me if I do this. You will never be able to regulate whether somebody can hurt your feelings. The only thing you have control over is when you feel the pain, how you respond, how you navigate it, how you heal it, how you move through it, how you evolve from it. You don't get to dictate whether you hurt. You don't get to tell somebody that they're wrong, they're disrespecting you. See, these illusions make you think you have control. You do not. Them complying and having the conversation with you when you address it does not mean you're in control. They just are a part of the same organized thinking as everyone else. So they feel like they have to. But a person that really knows the rules, no, you can confront me about whatever. I don't have to listen to you. I don't have to comply. I don't have to answer your questions. You literally can't make me do anything I don't want to do. I don't have to have manners. I don't have to respect you. I don't have to be loyal. The only thing that allows us to have good experiences is their loyalty to their own standards. It's not that you have control. It's the fact that they're holding themselves to a standard. They're not doing it for you. You see what I'm saying? And when you realize that, you can stop with the expectations and say, I trust you to show me exactly who you are in the time that you know it to be true. I don't expect you to show up as any character I I built in my mind. I trust you to show up as who you're showing me you are. I don't trust you to be something I haven't seen you show me. That's when you get real responsible about your environment. Okay, yes, thank you so much for your response. I appreciate it a lot. I've got some healing to do because I keep having an expectation for what I think I should have as a mother-daughter relationship. And yes, I have tried to address it with her, and she says it's my fault or that I'm not what she wants me to be as a daughter. And I'm so sorry that you even had to hear such a response. But understand that that response is coming from somebody that's not ready to be accountable, and changing the focus onto you puts her in a position to where she doesn't have to address it because she's not ready to. So that's an aspect of her that you have to accept as well. She's not ready to look at the wrong she may have done you. And if you visit those experiences on her on a regular basis, she will likely run from you because it's not something that she wants to encounter. Ona says, yes, that's how social media has groomed us. Absolutely. Shonda says 100%. Carlene said, I completely agree on lived experience. I went over 14 minutes, guys. I appreciate you guys being here with me, and you guys did such a great job attending my first Q&A on multiple platforms. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your votes of confidence and kind words. I will be putting on the schedule to do this on a regular basis. I don't think it'll be this late probably ever again, but I will make sure it's on the weekly schedule. And I should be releasing the schedule on Monday. And so I'll let you guys know when the Q&As will be available. Again, I also do independent one-on-one life coaching. You're more than welcome to DM me for the details, and I can help you get scheduled. I appreciate you ladies for asking these wonderful questions. I hope I was clear. Sometimes it makes sense in my head, and trying to put it out there in a non-complicated way, I feel like sometimes I'm being too complicated. So I apologize if there was anything that was unclear. I try my best to be as thorough as I possibly could. Thank you, Miss Carlene. I appreciate it. And I hope to see you guys again soon. You guys have a wonderful evening. Kiss your babies, relax, get something good to eat, watch a good movie, take care of your body, your spirit, and your heart. And I will see you guys soon. Peace.